The Prime Minister insists the date will not change, but still calls grow louder for our national celebration to be held on another day. Protests across the country today reflected the pressure being exerted on our political leaders to face up to our past.
Thank you so much. Well, happy Australia Day.
Championing the 26th from ordinary Aussies.
I just want to display our passion for the 26th. It's a lovely number.
Right to the top.
There are people that disagree about the issue, but not many.
Yet today, opponents of the current Australia Day seemed everywhere. Many hundreds carried flags through central Brisbane, in Canberra, across Commonwealth Avenue Bridge in a march towards Parliament.
The people are the voice, and I think the voice isn't being listened to.
Adelaide on the steps of State Parliament, in Sydney from Redfern to Hyde Park. In central Melbourne, thousands vented their anger.
A lot of these people are out protesting and that really don't give a stuff about Australia.
Indigenous leader Warren Mundine says much of the push for a new Australia Day
Just a Sydney and Melbourne echo chamber.
and those making the most noise,
All they want to be is destructive, vile people.
and yet he supports a new Australia Day, January 1st, Federation, like Canada's Day. July 1st marks their states coming together. The US, India, Indonesia are among many who celebrate independence. Germans mark the 1990 reunification of East and West. The UK has no national day.
I don't think changing the day will solve the problem.
The Greens have adopted the case for change. The major parties still back January 26th. If we are headed for a new Australia Day, it may be years off yet. Tim Lester, 7 News.
Good evening. The organiser of a rally against Australia Day has told a crowd of thousands she hopes our country burns to the ground. Protesters demanding change call it Invasion Day and say it causes hurt and pain to Aboriginal people across the country.
The crowd swelled around Parliament House and their message was one of anger. Don't change the date, ditch it altogether.
We've organised this to abolish Australia Day because Australia. Australia, hope it burns to the ground.
They call it Invasion Day. Many wore black to honour their ancestors and laid flowers on the steps.
This is a day of mourning, it's a day of grief, of suffering, of pain.
Thousands of people marched along Bourke Street, accusing those who mark Australia Day of celebrating genocide. Police were always close by, surrounding the protesters in case of any clashes. Far-right groups had threatened to cause trouble, but instead held their own event at St Kilda. Back in the city, officers tried to stop the group from staging a sit-in at the intersections, but they halted the march many times to dance, shouting this was their land and they'll stop where they want to. The crowd continued along Swanston Street. It was the same route the official Australia Day parade had taken a short time earlier. Spectators who still lined the barricades were yelled at and booed.
What's wrong with you? What are you doing with the Australian flags up here in front of us?
Today marks the 80th anniversary of the first Invasion Day protest, which took place on the 26th of January 1938. A younger generation of Aboriginal leaders is now carrying on the work of their ancestors.
I'm still fighting today for what my old people have fought for, and it's shame. Shame on Australia.
The rally culminated at Flinders Street, organisers declaring it the largest march in 50 years. They say they'll continue to protest on what is clearly an emotional day for many Indigenous Australians. Melina Saris, 7 News.
Good evening. There have been bursts of pride and passionate protest as Victorians from all walks of life marked Australia Day 2018. The day was dominated by a huge march through the city, with thousands of people calling on officials to change the date or abolish the celebration altogether. Andrew Lund begins our coverage.
It's supposed to unite the nation, but for many it's a day of division.
This country does not deserve a day of national celebration in any capacity.
As thousands of people converged on State Parliament to celebrate Indigenous culture, The language was angry and at times inflammatory.
Australia. Australia, burns the ground.
Police maintained a highly visible presence as marchers swarmed through the city streets. Dubbed the Invasion Day rally, the protest culminated at the intersection of Flinders and Swanston streets.
The Melbourne March has traditionally been the biggest in the country, and this year is no exception, with organisers claiming a record crowd amid renewed debate about the National Day.
Some want it abolished, while others are pushing for a change of date.
I've mourned this day for nearly so many years, I won't tell you my age, but it's always been there.
I think you need to acknowledge the history and the fact that if we're going to be one Australia, we've got to change the date because it hurts so many people.
The 26th of January is an opportunity for this country to heal and to own the truth, to be able to move forward.
The question is whether today's rally brought people together or further divided opinion. Andrew Lund, 9 News.